Okay, so this tutorial is going to go through how we can actually start to model the abdomen and the groin of the robot here. And so what we're going to be looking at, to model the torso, this is a little bit more abstract than sort of the arm and the leg. I don't have a good clean 3D scan of that since I wasn't doing a full body scan when I went through that. So I'm going to actually just model something here. What I've done is I just drew essentially a section curve of what I wanted this sort of thing to be, sort of at the back of the spine, or actually bottom of the spine and the neck here, and I've regenerated that and mirrored it across, so I essentially set myself up so I could do a simple loft. So let's go through here and showing that, and then if I lock these guys, you can see how the geometry is actually generated. Oh, maybe. Flip that, okay, there we go. Right, and so you can see how we would generate a really simple sort of forms out of these things. And so I've gone through, and the seam is a little bit different on the one that I actually have produced here, and you can see that how that seam actually moves across that instead of across this guy. And so then I took this and I rotated it up, and then I did just a one-dimensional scale here. You can see we're operating now the scale of the robot. So then I just did a 1D, and I scaled it until I got it to be about right for what my torso was going to be appropriate. Okay, and then I actually ended up deciding that I wanted to do some abs on this, so then I drew up sort of some Iron Man-esque abs here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and project those onto this guy right here. And then I'm going to pull this down so I can actually build these guys up. Right. And then I rebuilt these and gave them a point count relatively low. 3 and then 1 degree curves again. Oops. Oh, these are already. That's what happens when you do this and then you try and let's do select duplicate. Well, suffice to say, what I ended up doing out of this is, I then took those and then I locked them together after I rebuilt them. And so I had this guy right here, and I'll just hide the stuff that's extra now. So I took a bunch of 1 degree curves to develop the section here, and then I just sort of set that in there so that I could get a little bit of opening on my abs. So this would be what the chassis would look like. And then I took that and did an extrude surface. And I selected all these guys and then typed, not extract, extrude surface. And then I just selected all these guys, and if you type D, you can set the direction. And so then I just set it at a diagonal here. Right, and then I was able to come over here and make sure these guys are solid, and they're not. So let's repeat that, and we'll set this to solid. Direction, just so it would follow like a human hip line. Alright, and now these guys are solid objects. So we can take this and hide away the stuff we don't need, and then we'll lock the stuff that's up here so we can't accidentally grab on stuff. Okay, alright, so that gives us this set of geometries, and then we can come in here, and I just started cleaning this up out of removing extra stuff that I didn't know that I really cared for. And again, we're creating a simulation here, so not everything needs to be hyper real. So that gave me a couple of nice lines as I was going through it. And then I went and did a cage edit as I was going through this. And so B for bounding box. One more. And then you can come in here and actually start to massage this. So if we just rotate this, we can pull this back so it, oop, yeah, turn off your object snaps while you're massaging these things if you don't want them to get out of orientation, and make sure planer's on too. So pull that out a little bit, grab these control points, massage them up. Okay. And we can grab those, pull these guys out slightly. And actually I'm going to use the move command so I can repeat the distance. Alright. So we get to something that we like. Right. Then we can just hide that out. Now we have our torso. So if we unlock this, and you never want to edit your original. And I just use 10 times the scale, so I'll divide this by 10. So I can start to assemble my robot here. Alright, so if I just turn on grid snap, and turn on our snapping, we can grab the snap and move that onto our grid, and then we can come over here and mirror our construction. Right, and then we can come in here and do some more scaling here. So we'll do scale 1D. Get a little bit more out of that. We'll get a little bit more out of that. Right, and so then you can continue to massage this around and position these guys. Obviously this is not in alignment with this. So now if we come and zoom in, we can start to see that we're starting to take shape here. All right. Okay, we'll just position this. Alright, and then the way that I did this, I'll show you. I'm just going to flash over. I actually went through the same modeling technique as before. Oh. Sorry, zoom window. So do the groin. So while this guy upper torso is a little bit more complicated, the lower torso is essentially a simpler version of the same thing. Just created the profile and then projected it over. And then I modeled like a really sort of basic hip joint where this thing will be able to pivot obviously and rotate along this axis, and then the leg will be able to rotate along the opposite axis, so you can create 3D motions there. Right? And it's essentially the same model that's up here. And I'm not, you'll note, not modeling the interior guts of that. That'll end up coming in later as I start to think about how the thing and hydraulics will come in down the road. Right, so that'll be how you guys model the torso and the chest. I ended up doing one other component here to like sort of get the neck out of the other portion of the scan. There's not much to that. I modeled that exactly the same way as I modeled one of the leg features. I just contoured it, and then once I had all that contoured, I just chopped off the head. Here you can see that head floating, my head floating. And then I modeled, this is actually the same torso model, I just reproportioned it in a different way. So you can see that I've sort of reused some of the geometries in here, so we start to get a read that these things are related to each other in this component. All right, and so that's essentially the modeling of the robot, and that's about as far as I think you really need to go in terms of the complexity of this. We're more going to end up being more interested in the diagramming of the motion and getting the sort of mechanics of this thing to be visualized. All right.